So the last two videos have sparked a lot of comments on Tricolor and First Brands and their SPEs. How does this happen? Does no one do due diligence or anything like that? So why don't we actually discuss how this can happen and how it happens all the time, okay? And this is how it happens. As anybody who follows this channel knows, I'm very big on watching liquidity. Liquidity does many things to the market. Can drive it up, changes yield curves, creates new investments that would never be investments where we didn't have great liquidity, okay? So let's look at liquidity. Number one, of course, is the Fed balance sheet, my favorite chart of this channel, okay? So I just want to point back, look at there in 2007 and 8. So our balance sheet went from basically a little under $1 trillion to a little over 2.1, 2.2 trillion, okay? That was the great financial crisis. And I don't really remember anything really happening between, 2010 and 2015, and yet we went up another $2 trillion. Then of course COVID hit in 19, and we went up $5 trillion over, looks like 2 years, all right? So in other words, in a 9-year period, we went up $8 trillion on the balance sheet. Now this is M2, and M2 every week, so I'm assuming last week too, it hits an all-time high. Now M2, when you say, what is M2, what's a good description of M2? It is money that can buy something, okay? So however the money, cash gets there, doesn't matter. It's something can be bought with this money, all right? Now, just because I'm an old timer here, I just want to notice here, because I noticed this myself. Look at 1980, 82, okay, where our balance sheet started to take off. So if you go back in time from, let's say, the recession in 1947 through 1982, the stock market was virtually flat, okay, flat, during this inflationary period, all right? And so inflation ends in 1982, and we enter into this 35-year deflationary cycle. And yet, I can't explain it to you, look what happened to our M2 during this deflationary cycle. Now, this is our currency, like the dollars in your hands. How much do we have, right? And again, I'm just going to point out, look at 1982. It was when we started. So all this along, all the way back to 1920, look at this, okay? That was our inflationary period. Then we enter into a deflationary period, and look at the currency in circulation. If you can explain this, tell me in the comments. I'm mystified. I'm thinking about this and trying to figure out what happened, okay? So obviously, we threw a lot of liquidity into the market. I would say, look at those charts and think about it. It is literally beyond comprehension. It makes the word tsunami not even a tsunami. It's a hyper tsunami, okay, of liquidity, money that hits this market. Then you say, okay, what are the first things that happen when we have all this liquidity? The first thing is we have a compression of the yield curve. And that when I'm saying compression between, AAA rated, double B, single B, triple B, whatever, okay? So there's two spots I want you to look at. If you look here around 2000, right after 2000 and everything, now remember, we had 2001, 2003. This is when we had the dot-com bust. Look at the spread between the different yields, okay? So the green is double B, the red is triple B, and the blue is triple A. And also say is once, so how to say this? So when a market gets in trouble, then we pay attention to what the ratings are on how we're going to price it. When everything is going good, we don't pay attention to it as much. And notice, once we got out of the 2001, the dot-com bubble, look at how it all came together. But then we hit 2007, 8, and 9, and look at the spreads there. So what this is telling you, yeah, this was really bad, and people really started to discern the difference between triple B, double B, and triple A. And now look where we are today. We have virtually closed the gaps. This is where the smallest thing is. So what happens is it's money chasing yield. So the liquidity goes in and says, we need to buy something, all right? So we're gonna buy. So you may start with the AAA. When that gets too low, then you go to the triple B, then you go to double B, then you go to junk status and down, and these spreads get narrower and narrower, okay? But that's only the first thing that happens, okay? So now we're in a little different world, so I'm gonna throw this in, all right? So about 25% to 30% of all corporate bonds now are being issued through private equity guys. So they buy the company, lever them up, borrow all the money for that corporation, so it's a corporate bond, all right? But here's the difference. This private equity group, they're no dopes. They're financial engineers par excellence. These guys are, they are the wizards of money, all right? And so they start negotiating with people trying to find paper to buy, okay? And so what changes is you have a corporate bond that has a certain structure. It's $1,000, it has a maturity date, you pay your interest every quarter, blah, 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 blah. But it also has what we call covenants. So here's the covenants of a typical commercial bond offering. There's limitation on how much debt you can have, limitation on liens, limitation on asset sales. Change of control, then this affects what's going on. Merger covenants, limitation on affiliate transactions, okay? So you have to keep them arm's length and fair. Reporting covenant obligates the issuer to provide regular financial statements and disclosures to bondholders. This is the critical one because guess what? And then future guarantors of the covenant mandates if a subsidiary guarantees other debt, it must also guarantee the bond issue, and restricted payment covenant. So all this makes business sense. Anybody who's in business and everything, you go, yeah, this makes total sense. But these PE people aren't stupid, okay? So they want as much financial flexibility as they can get, and they are the best in the world at debt. This is what they're good at, and believe me, they have forgotten more than you and I will ever learn, all right? So the first thing that they start doing is they start saying, we will do a deal with you. You can buy our debt, but we want these covenants taken out. And so guess what? We have Cov-lite loans, covenant-lite, all right? So they have significantly fewer covenants compared to traditional commercial debt. And so what is it? They have minimal financial maintenance covenants. In other words, you don't have to say anything to anybody, right? Mainly incurrence covenants, okay? So incurrence covenants will cover this, meaning that if there's a change, a material change in the company or the debt or interest or whatever, it incurs that then they have to pay attention. So this is a big thing. And then they have limited or no requirements on regular financial reporting, and reduced or no restrictions on borrower actions like dividend payments, asset sales, or operational decisions until a default event occurs, okay? And they structure the senior secured term loans with no or minimal amortization or bullet payment at maturity. And they can include some basic negative covenants, builder and grower baskets that allow certain acquisitions or debt repayments, but generally provide maximum flexibility to the borrowers. So what they do is they negotiate away all the covenants for the bondholder, for the issuer of the bond, all right? And so these Cov-lite deals are, you buy in with your eyes open, and so these guys then pull all the stuff in the background, and when they go to court, they say, hey, we did what we're supposed to do. Like and follow, tell me in the comments.